This is the informal regular session, April 1st, to two topics. Miami Trail Stormwater with County Engineer Mr. Monger, and Farmland Preservation Resolution, John McManus, to follow.
Very good. Thank you. I've got a quick little presentation here to work through on some of the things that we've been working on relative to the Miami Trails subdivision. Also, we've got 3 board members from the Miami Trails Homeowners Association and one property owner that's not on the board, just a normal property owner, I guess, that's in potentially in the one of the affected areas. Just in short, this situation arose very similar to the Orchard Valley. There was a small pothole over on the road. I guess it was last summer, last fall. Sinkhole, kind of a sinkhole, which is how these underground systems, show their problems. Eventually, it results in some sort of sinkhole. So it happened in the road in Miami Township. It was on a township road. They televised the line, which showed the problems that were relevant to this stretch of pipe within the subdivision. And so then that led to the next discussion, which they could take care of issues within the right-of-way. And then, of course, that led to the HOA had property upstream, and Mr. Wolf had property downstream. And so we had the classic example of we've got county-owned or township-owned, government-owned property with pipes, and we got private property, and how do we best deal with that? So what was happening, sort of a little background specifically with this subdivision, what was going on was the Orchard Valley hearings were in full swing last fall, and the HOA folks approached me, and they were present at the couple of the Orchard Valley hearings, and they saw that whole process, and they approached me and they said, we clearly understand that this is one way that you can go through 6131, which is the ditch petition process, but is there another way? And I said, well, as a matter of fact, there is. And we talked a little bit about that, and I'll let them reinforce some of the things that they've done since. But in short, what I suggested that they do is to go back to their HOA association, and I gave them some rough numbers. We took some information off of the plans. Here is the subdivision. So we took the plan information that we had. You can see here what we're looking at is the whole subdivision. Branch Hill Guinea is down here, so kind of their main entrance comes in here. The run of pipe that's bad is right in here. So we took some preliminary information, gave that to the homeowners or the HOA to take back so that there would be no surprises. In other words, okay, if we do this assessment by this town or by the whole subdivision, we would take care of the immediate problems, but the residences would pay for it, and they would also pay for ongoing maintenance, because I didn't want any kind of surprises. So I gave them what we thought was a bare minimum dollar amount per month, if you will, up to kind of a worst case scenario. So we took that information back, and then I'll let them talk a little bit about that. But overwhelmingly, they got pretty good support. So they came back to me and said, I took the information that you gave me preliminarily. We presented it to our board. It looks pretty favorable. What's the next step? And I said, well, the next step is for me to better understand what really is the financial situation going on in this subdivision. So it's 10 sections, and it was built over a period of time. Let's see here. Go to the end here. Whoops. Yeah. So we got 10 sections of development. So it happened from 88 to 93. Got just under 300 lots in the subdivision. The vast majority of the pipe is either reinforced concrete ductile iron, or PVC. So only less than 10% of it is corrugated metal, which obviously is a good thing. So once we gave them the preliminary information, the next thing that I did is we had all these lines televised, and we're in the process of finalizing, that report, so we could have a better financial understanding. But the majority of the pipe that's in this subdivision, there's thousands of feet of pipe that's on private property that would be ultimately part of the stormwater district. And so we would collect a fee on a every other month basis, to pay for not only the capital improvements that are needed today, but the maintenance and any capital need that might be needed in the future, for the rest of time. So we're pretty close in completing what I would call my assessment. But as far as the next steps go here today, one of the things that I wanted to brief the board on was one, that this would be slightly using a different section of the code than with the Orchard Valley, and there's some advantages in that. I think there's a lot less. First of all, I think this section of code, like I mentioned in the Orchard Valley hearings, I think this 17 is better equipped to handle once you create the district, set the rate, you move forward. And very much like Suki said earlier about the water rates and the sewer rates, we're looking at like a 5-year period of time from an initial evaluation. So we're going to take a very comprehensive look of all the infrastructure, and we need to finalize it. We're pretty good shape. We've had it all televised. We just got to fine tune some numbers, develop some operating and maintenance budgets, develop some capital improvement budgets, and assign the life cycle, go through some of the administrative things from a policy standpoint. You have to not necessarily create them. We need to look at, there's a lot of data and a lot of policies put together years ago when the county was looking at a countywide storm district. This is very much a smaller district, obviously only 300 people or less than 300 people, but a lot of those same policies and procedures need to be worked out. So we got to review those. It's our feeling that the billing system would work really integrate well within the current water and sewer billing system. So it'd be billed on a bi-monthly basis. And so from the administrative next step standpoint, we need to work through some of those budget issues, some of those policy issues, with the end result being, should the board and everybody be willing to move forward, we would get to the establishing resolutions, which years ago were drafted, just never executed. So that's kind of where we are at from a next step standpoint. Again, from a condition assessment, it's pretty positive. Most of the pipes are in really good shape. We've kind of rated them a 1, 2, 3. 1 being that there's immediate action needed. There's a pretty significant problem. Ironically, the stretch of pipe that is affecting the HOA as well as the private property owners is really one of the only stretches of pipe that is corrugated metal, and the bottom is just completely rotted and non there. So the vast majority of the pipe is in pretty good shape. We only got 4% of all of the, about 8,000 feet of pipe outside of the right of way. Anything inside the township would still maintain as they have and continue to do. So 1's basically replaced. 2 is it's okay for now. We want to keep an eye on it. And 3 is basically, no maintenance. It's in pretty much the condition that it was put in, nearly 20 years ago. So that's kind of a quick summary of the condition. And again, when we talk about immediate needs, our immediate needs would revolve in 2 focuses. We would have capital improvements and ongoing maintenance, as well as administrative fees that we would work into that overall rate structure. So we're working with a consultant, and probably we'll work with Suki as well, to come up with an appropriate rate structure to deal with this situation, certainly over the next 5 years, and then beyond. So relatively, when you look at 8,000 feet of pipe in the ground, having to deal with a couple hundred feet of pipe is it's a pretty positive step, and I don't really foresee much of these two rated or 3 rated runs of pipe. Basically, 96% of the system is in great shape. So this is kind of a picture. This was caught from the video camera that was run through the pipe. You can see where the bottom. This is the sides of the pipe here. So basically, if you think of a circle from around 9 o'clock to 3 o'clock is just rotted and rusted and not there. And one of the options, and this was, I think, in the price proposal that the HOA received, was a cost to reline the pipe or rehabilitate the pipe. So we have that cost. If this thing moves forward, the only other thing I would recommend is that we get a price to conventional construction, basically replace, dig it up and replace it, and kind of compare those two costs.
So Kyle, this is a steel corrugated.
Correct.
Are we still using steel corrugated in new construction? Or?
You know, it's allowed for in the subdivision regulations, but we certainly try to discourage it. Yeah, yeah. So basically, we've got a neighborhood that is interested in putting a stormwater district in place that would encompass their whole subdivision. We've preliminarily looked at the pipes. I would say, based on the information, our rate, I'm not ready to say for sure, but it's probably going to be in the $4 to $5 a month rate range.
$4 to $5 a month or bi-monthly?
Monthly.
Monthly.
Yeah. So it'd be it would be billed by month. So it'd be 8 to
16.
Yeah, it's still the same a year.
I got it.
But and not likely to really sway one way or the other because of the amount of pipe that is in place that is concrete. When we have a maintenance ability to maintain it, you start to see a small problem, you can go fix it before it festers and becoming a big problem. So if those numbers were switched and we would have had 90-some% corrugated metal pipe, well, then the monthly rate would have been proportionately higher. But anyway, those are some preliminary things. I know the HOA folks and the residents are eager to move forward. They wanted to, they came in around the holidays, I think, to talk about this, and so this is where we're at. So I'll turn it over to the HOA guys, and any questions you want to ask, or anything you want to fill in from what I said, feel free. I guess this is kind of an informal
Sure.
conversation we're having here. So.
Come up.
Yep, come on up.
It's better to be at the podium because we have a mic there and we'll capture the.
So I'm John Faulkner, Miami Trails Homeowners Association Board member. We have here John Westerman, our Vice President and resident. Bruce Pearl, also a board member, Pearlson. And Mike Wolf, who is primarily affected homeowner on the current problem that we're seeing with the corrugated pipe. Now, as you know, the subdivision is aging. The infrastructure is aging. We've been told these pipes have about a 25 to 30-year lifespan for the corrugated stuff. The price to repair them is excessive for one individual homeowner. The whole community has risen to say that they think it's a fairness issue fundamentally in spreading the cost amongst the whole community. We've met with Pat, we've met with Marshall, your attorney, we've hired our own attorney to submit requests. We've made significant attempts, we feel, to educate the residential populace of our community with a ballot issue that we put on our annual meeting ballot in December, which was responded to with 100% approval rating of those responding. We then met, we came down to the Orchard Valley meeting, and I think we talked, Ed, with you privately.
Yep.
After that, and you said you'd like to see significant community support. So we followed that up then with an additional survey to all people who didn't respond to the ballot in the community. And as of this point, we have 202 responses out of the community with no negative responses. Now, we also put out frequently asked questions, worked with Pat, Marshall, and our attorneys to talk about the legal implications, to talk about the money implications of all of this, so that our homeowners would be, you know, well informed when they responded or decided not to respond. We also told any ones that responded we would view that as not a negative, but as a lack of, they didn't care which way it went. So in that sense, it would be positive, and we put that into the communication we sent to them. We also try to keep them informed. For instance, of this meeting, we put this on our website so that when they log in, it pops up and they see that, hey, there's a meeting to discuss this issue, should you want to come and participate.
Well, plus it'll be on YouTube this afternoon.
I hope not.
Well, you have
It will.
100%. You have 100% of those that responded to say that it's positive,
Yes.
and it's 70% of the total group that said, yeah.
It's pretty good.
So, I don't know, John Westerman is our primarily affected homeowner. I'm sorry, Mike Wolf. John Westerman is our vice president. John, did you want to add anything?
No, I just wanted to stress, I mean, we have the numbers showing, like you said, 70% of homeowners, 100% approving, we have no dissenters. Just like to add anecdotally, not only do we have people just voting yes, there's just strong support in the neighborhood. I mean, every time I talk with somebody, we have 11 board members. Everybody is very interested in this issue. We all feel like we have a vested interest and very much supportive of it. So, I wanted to add that.
Okay.
Mike, did you want to say anything about the urgency from your point of view?
Thank you, Commissioners, for your time this morning. I guess I am rated #1 according to Pat's report there as far as the lucky property owner of 146 feet of corrugated metal pipe. I don't have really much more to add, John. Kind of stated, you know, the strong, there's a strong community support, but also that neighborhood concern that, you know, this is kind of, we want a shared solution. I think everyone agrees it's, you know, shared public infrastructure. I don't benefit at all from having this pipe 20 feet below my, you know, running across the side of my property into a ditch. I think that one of the concerns was we are starting to be more of an aged neighborhood, and, you know, having being 26, 27 years old as a neighborhood, we talked to the real estate agents that are active in our neighborhood, and, you know, we compete against newer neighborhoods in Clermont County. We compete against other northeast Cincinnati suburbs, and this is something that all the homeowners are really cautious of. Is, you know, we want to be proactive, make sure that, you know, Miami Trails doesn't have a tainted reputation for having aging infrastructure, and felt like this is the best way to proactively support it. Certainly, it affects my property in the sense that, you know, I'm kind of more of the urgent need, but I think everybody was really happy to hear about the proactive nature that it'll be currently, you know, in going forward will be monitored, and, you know, certainly any issues that are identified, we can have more of a response to take care of those, hopefully under a cheaper method to, you know, address any issues that pop up. You know, also there was strong emphasis that, you know, this needs to be a neighborhood solution, that everyone was on board with that. You know, people, when they're looking at houses, they look at, you know, houses in Miami Trails. They don't say, I want Miami Crest Street or Trail Ridge. We didn't want to create divisions within the neighborhood, and then as issues would arise on other streets, they'd have to go through this whole new process here. We really didn't want to address it from a watershed perspective. We felt like there was strong support for it to be a neighborhood solution. I can't, you know, as a very effective homeowner, you know, the support from the community has been great. 202 votes for it, 0 votes against. It's a beautiful day out there today. If we sent out 202 ballots to say, hey, is it beautiful, sunny, blue skies, we would probably get 1 or 2 votes back to say, well, it's not really blue. There's a hint of gray, or there's clouds in the sky. So it's hard to get 202 votes for anything with 0 against, and I think that really speaks to the speaks to how important this is as a priority for our neighborhood. We communicated out through all means, all methods. What was going on, what we were looking at. And that was really even before Patrick's assessment. We didn't know. We kind of had suspicions that most of our pipes, just through looking at the outlets, that most of them were going to be reinforced concrete, were going to be PVC. We knew that the current one that was damaged was corrugated metal. It's great that only 9% of the pipes in the entire neighborhood are corrugated metal. So we kind of asked, okay, what's the Armageddon if everything had to be replaced tomorrow? What are we looking at? And now we're looking at 4% needs to be addressed tomorrow. So that 202 support, that was not knowing that it was just going to be 4% of the pipes that needed addressed in an urgent manner. So I think that'll even alleviate those fears much more. And then kind of on the last part, there's 2 private property owners affected, myself and then my neighbor. I moved in 2.5 years ago. My neighbor moved in last March, so he got a really welcome to the neighborhood. Welcome to the neighborhood.
It's a welcome wagon for you, huh?
Meeting back in October, and then there's 194 feet that are on private property. 133 of the damaged pipe is on homeowners association property that we're going to have to address either way as a community, and whether it comes from the HOA funds for that or through this monthly billing. There's a strong sense from the HOA board, and I think the residents, that we want the HOA to be flowers, landscaping, pool, and not in this infrastructure business. And this this petition, I think, really helps to kind of delineate where those responsibilities lie. So we certainly appreciate your attention. We appreciate all of Pat's work. He's been great to work with, and I know everybody's busy, but as the spring rain season comes on, and 2-3 weeks ago when we were having 2 or 3 inches of rain, and I can see the ditch where the pipe flows out, and back in my property. It's certainly something that we would like to have addressed sooner than later. And then the HOA pipe runs over the community pool, which hopefully opens May 25th, May 26th, and certainly the more work that could be done to not interfere with pool season would be good. We wouldn't want to have a meeting with the moms and all the kids without a pool for a while here. So mainly moms. So again, thank you very much for your time and your consideration for this petition.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Bruce,
good.
did you want to add anything? To the next step? Possibly. Okay.
I'm Bruce Perlson. I'm also a resident in Miami Trails, and as I was introduced as a board member. But at the time that I voted on this issue, I wasn't a board member. And it turns out that none of the piping that's involved runs across my property. So I just wanted to emphasize that the residents of Miami Trails are very much in favor of this solution to our communal problem. And so again, the other thing that I would add is the sense of urgency that you have probably sensed, because every time it rains, more damage is done, and obvious concern is that the system could collapse if too much water runs through it. So it's important for us to resolve this matter as expeditiously as possible. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I just quick summary. Here's the overall, and the magenta lines show all the pipe runs, and I think somewhere in here, yeah. So basically, we've got 89 separate runs of pipe, and we looked at how most of the runs affect a couple property owners. So I think there's 75 to 80 properties physically affected. The gentleman spoke that he doesn't have any pipes on his property. So it's not quite a third of the people have something on their property. So I think it bodes pretty well that the majority of the neighborhood doesn't have a pipe on their property, but yet they're willing to, to step up, obviously, and look at this as a holistic, which is really something we at the county, John's been involved, McManus has been involved with this for quite some time, and the larger the scale you can do these kinds of districts, the better off it is. You start to get down on that micro level, and it starts to fall apart a little bit. The concept here is, it's the neighborhood. The neighborhood was built to function as a unit. If a pipe run fails here, it has the potential to affect the whole neighborhood. So anyway, that's really, I think, from a next step perspective, I got to clean some things up from a numbers perspective, work through some policies issues, but it could be a situation where over the next 30 days we could have some things wrapped up and have a resolution, to the board that would A, set the district, B, set the rate, and we'll continue to work with the prosecutor's office to make sure we're crossing all the T's and dotting all the I's. But I think once we get those two resolutions set, then we're up and running, and you could get bids and authorize construction and things like that. So we're compared to the Orchard Valley process, which I think you finished today. Took about a year to do it. So from start to finish on this one, we're looking at a couple of months. So
Pat, if the board approves this and we create this stormwater district for Miami Trails,
correct.
going forward, if other subdivisions come to us, this is already, the template's been created, at which point we just apply it. There's
Correct.
no additional.
The analysis would have to be made because every subdivision is going to be different. This one's pretty unique. This has got this is pretty hilly, and it's a very scenic neighborhood.
The analysis is the only thing that has to be
exactly.
done.
The condition, what I would call the condition analysis, which helps us set the rate, that would be unique to this subdivision, to the next, to the next, to the next. But the overall process would be the same. You'd want to get, I'm assuming we're going to want to get, neighborhood feedback, neighborhood support, do the analysis, see what the rate's looking like for today, tomorrow, and the future. Make sure everybody's still on board at that check off. And then, the third check off would be, filing the resolution and establishing the rates. And then the code even allows the county to, let's just project 25 years down the road, and we've got 50 of these. It allows the county to consolidate them all into one, which was very much what I think the sewer district did back in the 70s. They had 4 or 5 different sewer districts, and then they consolidated them all into one. So the code's pretty set up for this. It allows you to create one or more stormwater districts, and then I think it's like I said before, in my opinion, it's the right section of code to deal with this kind of a district.
For the homeowner association, you got about 201 replies back from your ballot. 97 didn't reply. Is that pretty typical whenever you send out a ballot? Do you get 90 plus that don't get back?
In past years, we were lucky to get 100 back on
Okay.
many issues.
So you got twice the reply on this
Twice
than
the
others,
reply.
right?
We communicate via email quite frequently. We sent out formal letters back in the fall explaining the situation. Before we really knew what the solution was, we wanted to, and it was a detailed 3-page, single-spaced letter explaining the situation and what we were facing. We communicated updates via email. We posted them to our website. We followed up with another email and letter to every homeowner. So we were pretty on top of this, and that's the response we got.
Did you have any cost estimates from the engineer's office when you sent those letters out?
Yes.
We had preliminary.
We had preliminary.
Yeah, the preliminary, which was the rehabilitation, they had those costs, and then I also gave them kind of like I didn't know how much linear feet of corrugated metal pipe was in the ground, so I kind of gave them the Armageddon number, which was, I don't know, $15 or $18 a month, something like that. It was a couple $100 a year, from an assessment standpoint. So we kind of gave them what we knew at minimum was going to be up to kind of nearest worst-case scenario we could come up with.
Well, between the homeowner association and our county engineer, I think you guys did some good due diligence, so makes it a lot simpler for us to
Yeah.
evaluate this.
So what's the process moving forward under this section of the code? I would think there'd be public hearing.
There doesn't appear to be anything specific in that regard. Now, when you get into, if you got into what was perceived as a special assessment, then there would be. But
Sure. We're just talking here.
yeah,
so.
yeah,
In our communications to all of our residents, we have always told them that they would have at least one chance at a public hearing.
Yeah, and we would
Right.
prefer that. I mean, from
And-
our point of view, I can only speak for myself, but I prefer that
Right.
too. I don't want to just ram this down anybody's throat. I want to make sure people have an opportunity to be heard, so I would,
Yeah, rather.
I haven't reviewed that code that
And again,
closely.
You don't have to go, you know, you asked me what the code requires, and the way I understand it is if it's a special assessment, then there's a kind of, you know, I think you guys are familiar with like a special assessment for water and sewer, and Lyle has to, you know, go through a whole different process. In my opinion, and my understanding thus far is that if we set the rate and we establish the rate to be able to do all the things that we need to do, then we wouldn't need a special assessment. The rate would cover, you know, the ongoing thing.
Yeah.
So whether or not we want to have a public meeting is.
The two steps are to establish the district. right?
Exactly. So we would have a resolution that would establish the district, and then a resolution that would set the rate.
Establish the rate.
Yeah, those are the two resolutions that
Okay.
would,
So we need to talk with our civil
and I have been.
attorneys to figure out if we need to do public hearing for each, or can we do them as a combined public hearing and do them both together? And
My understanding is.
I don't think we've talked to civil about that yet.
Yeah, my understanding is if it was, either way, you would, the resolutions, any public notice would cover both, the rate as well as the district.
Okay,
So,
cool.
But,
Yeah, to answer your question, definitely we would have, if it's not a required public, hearing, it would be we would do a public,
Yeah.
informative one.
We'd want to have a public hearing.
We would like to do it as expeditiously as possible.
I hear
Absolutely,
you.
Sense of urgency from all.
I
absolutely.
agree.
But we don't want to interfere with pool season any more than we have to.
Officer McAvoy.
My wife's a teacher, that's who I am.
Okay. So I think we're in general agreement, and we need to work with our civil division to see what the process is and how rapidly we can notice it, have a public hearing, and proceed. And whether we need one public hearing or two, we need to check with our civil division to get us on the right path. Whatever that path is, we need to study that path. But we need to do it rapidly so that we can get started and get it noticed and get it moving. So,
Definitely want to commend you all, for being progressive, and ahead of
well,
the curve.
and so cooperative as a community. That's very positive.
So it's good to see that still happening in Clermont County.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So you have direction to move forward then? Okay.